Imagine waking up one morning and realizing you're the smartest person on the entire planet, not because you got smarter overnight, but because 8 billion other people just got a whole lot dumber. That's exactly the situation Silas finds himself in, and trust me, it's not as fun as it sounds, at least not at first. Silas is your average high school student from Boston, regular grades, regular life, nothing special on paper. But the one thing that defines him isn't his grades, it's his sense of justice. When he sees the school board director's son bullying someone, he doesn't look the other way. He walks right up and drops the kid with one clean punch. One punch, that's all it takes to blow up his entire future. The director pulls every string he has. And just like that, Silas gets expelled from Oak Ridge High School. His dad spends days calling every school in the city, begging them to take his son in. Door after door slams shut because the director's son has poisoned every single one. The only school left standing is St. Jude High School, one of the most elite institutions in the entire city. And not just any program, the Pioneer Elite Class, a legendary track that nobody outside it fully understands. The problem? Silas doesn't qualify through the standard exam process. His only shot is an external recruitment interview, and there are no past papers, no syllabus, no question bank. His dad can only shrug and say, "You're just gonna have to get lucky." That night, Silas sits at his desk flipping through AP calculus notes, desperately cramming for something he can't even prepare for. Trigonometric identities, sine functions, plane vectors. His head is spinning. He finally collapses onto his bed, and just before he drifts off, something strange happens. A bizarre electric static crackle flashes through his mind like a signal, like a switch being flipped. He doesn't think much of it. He's exhausted. He just falls asleep. The next morning, Silas rolls out of bed and heads to his usual corner food truck. 2 bacon bagels and a black coffee, the usual order, the usual price, $5.50. Except the food truck boss tells him no, it's $5. Black coffee is $1. Always has been. Silas glances at the price list and every single item is a round number. $1. Not a single decimal point in sight. He tells himself it's nothing. He's running late. He pushes it aside. But something is already shifting in the back of his mind, something he can't quite name yet. He pedals his beat-up bicycle to St. Jude and walks into the waiting room for the Pioneer class interview. The people sitting there look terrifying: buzz cuts, thick black-rimmed glasses, dead eyes staring at the wall. The girls have high ponytails and steel thermoses, muttering quietly to themselves like robots running diagnostics. Silas nearly turns around and walks right back out the door, but then he peeks at the study guide of the guy next to him, and his jaw nearly hits the floor. The title reads, "Answer Memorization Manual for Multiplication and Division Within." And then a range so small sounds like a joke. He looks over at a girl across the room, frantically whispering the opening lines of a Shakespeare's like classified military intel. These people, these supposed geniuses, are cramming material a third grader would breeze through. Before Silas can process what any of this means, the interviews wrap up in under 2 hours. Every single student who walks out looks completely destroyed, crying, hollow-eyed, mentally shattered. Whatever was in that room broke them like twigs. Silas swallows hard and walks in anyway. The chief examiner, Mr. Mitchell, doesn't even look up from his desk. He clocks Silas as coming from a regular public school and immediately checks out, too lazy to even make eye contact. He waves at the electronic blackboard and tells Silas he has 5 minutes and needs an 80% accuracy rate. Silas turns around, and the screen is covered wall to wall in arithmetic problems. Addition, subtraction, basic mental math, the kind of stuff you'd teach to a 10-year-old. He stares at it for a full second, completely convinced someone is pranking him. Hidden cameras, a reality show? Is this actually the exam for one of the most elite schools in Boston? Whatever. He's already here. He takes a breath and starts swiping through the screen. One question every 2 seconds, pure instinct, pure muscle memory. Less than a minute later, all 20 questions done, every single answer correct. The teachers who were already packing up their bags to go grab pizza freeze where they stand. Mitchell's chair was halfway lifted when the math teacher's voice came out, trembling, "All correct." He slams back down like a stone and his entire demeanor shifts in an instant. The screen refreshes with a new set: general knowledge questions, this time Shakespeare's Hamlet. Words that read the same forwards and backwards. The full name of the first American president. Silas sweeps through all of them without pausing, without a single spelling error, without breaking a sweat. The examiners go dead silent. One of them stares at the young teacher who wrote the questions, genuinely suspecting he leaked the answers. Mitchell stands up, shoves his chair back, and marches to the blackboard himself. He picks up a marker and writes what he's convinced is an absolutely devastating final question. A quadratic-style equation pulled from a university advanced mathematics textbook, one he personally modified the night before. No student, he is certain, could possibly have seen this question anywhere. Silas looks at it for less than 1 second and writes the answer directly, no scratch paper, no hesitation. The number 2. That's it, done. Mitchell's legs go soft, his breathing comes out like a bull's. He demands the calculation process. Silas turns around and writes 3 lines on the board. Mitchell stares at those lines with his hands shaking so badly he can barely hold the pen. He pulls out Silas's file, takes out his official stamp and slams it down with everything he has. Student Silas, welcome to the Pioneer class. Silas rides home with the admission letter tucked under his arm, and that's when the streets start to feel wrong. Shop signs with no distinction between uppercase and lowercase s. 0 private cars on the road. Only yellow taxis lined up uniformly like the city forgot how to imagine anything else. And then a golden retriever, standing in line at a hot dog stand, holding cash in its mouth, buying lunch for its owner. This is not a prank. The world has genuinely changed. Silas spends the entire afternoon at his computer piecing it together, and the truth is almost too absurd to believe. The IQ of every human being on the planet has been comprehensively downgraded, wiped out on a massive scale. People's thinking is so limited that some individuals function at a level below advanced mammals. History still happens, civilizations rose and fell, but it took 1,000 times longer. What took humanity 500 years in Silas's original world took 500,000 years here. The last universally recognized genius lived 1,300 years ago. There hasn't been one since. Which means Silas, an ordinary high school student with an ordinary brain, is operating at an entirely different level than everyone around him. Not a little smarter, not slightly above average, a different dimension entirely. He is by default the highest functioning human being on the face of the earth. And the Pioneer class, this school full of supposed geniuses, is just the best of the worst. Silas is the only person in this world running normal human logic. Meanwhile, back at St. Jude, Mr. Mitchell is sitting in his office staring at his Harvard graduation photo. He was once hailed as a math prodigy, stepped proudly into Harvard's library at the peak of his life. But he couldn't understand the first page of any of the works considered absolute genius-level texts. He fled back to Boston in shame to teach middle school arithmetic to slightly less slow teenagers. And now a kid from a public school's regular class just solved a university-level problem in under 5 seconds. Mitchell picks up a cigarette, is so rattled he tries to put his lighter directly in his mouth, and fumbles it entirely. That evening, Silas's dad comes home and hammers on the front door. Forgot his keys at the construction site. Silas opens the door and slaps the admission letter straight onto his face. His dad's eyes go wide. He immediately calls his foreman to cancel a resignation he'd just submitted. They're celebrating when the TV cuts to breaking news: a serial murder case in Chicago. 5 young women dead, unknown modus operandi, citizens advised to exercise caution. Neither of them pays it much attention. It sounds like ordinary crime news, nothing more. They have no idea what's hiding behind that headline. The next morning, Silas arrives at Mr. Mitchell's office to formally report in before his first day. Mitchell locks the door and pulls out a placement test difficulty level, roughly equivalent to 6th grade. Finishes it in under 10 minutes, hands it back, and watches Mitchell's hands tremble as he takes it. Mitchell leads him up to the top floor of the academic building in total silence. The entire school echoes with the sound of students reading aloud except the Pioneer class floor, which is completely quiet. Silas pushes the door open and finds 20+ students in the most elite class in the city, all face down on their desks, fast asleep. He gets assigned to the back row, and already he can tell this is going to be a very different kind of school year. The blonde guy sitting in front of him introduces himself as Chris, and immediately starts showing off the class roster like a sports agent. That guy with the glasses, mental addition and subtraction up to 1,000. That girl, hundreds of sonnets memorized cold. And Chloe, the one sitting by the window, undisputed boss of the general knowledge field, the crown jewel of the Pioneer class. Silas listens to all of this and has to physically stop himself from laughing out loud. Slightly smarter morons are still morons. The Pioneer class runs on total academic freedom, no assigned work, no strict schedule, just self-discipline and whatever you feel like studying. Even the motivational quotes on the classroom wall are spectacularly unhinged. Genius is just genius, it has nothing to do with hard work or inspiration. Thomas Edison, the dates listing a life spanning tens of thousands of years. Silas pulls a history book off the shelf and flips it open. Ancient Egyptian civilization was founded over 1,900,000 years before Christ. The events of history are the same. The timeline is stretched to 1,000 times its normal length. Billions of ordinary people grinding for millions of years just to produce this tiny sliver of what's basic civilization. During the first break, everyone files out to wander the halls, and then something drops from Chloe's desk. A standard 3x3 Rubik's Cube, one face completed, first layer not even properly aligned. Silas picks it up. His hands recognize it immediately. Speed cubing in middle school. Muscle memory buried deep. His fingers start moving without thinking. Left up, right down. Right inverse. Left colors snapping into place like water flowing downhill. That's when Chloe runs back into the classroom and stops cold. The water bottle in her hand hits the floor. She doesn't notice, she's staring at the cube in his hands. Her eyes are practically bulging out of her head, sweat rolling down her neck, voice trembling like she's witnessing a miracle. Silas finishes the solvent under 30 seconds and hands it back. Chloe doesn't even look at the cube. She grabs Silas's wrist with both hands, breathing like a broken bellows. A kind of wild, manic light burning in her eyes. Silas tries to gently pull his hand back and gets absolutely nowhere. He finally extracts himself. She stammers his name once she learns it's Silas and holds onto it, like it means something enormous. But before he can figure out what just happened, Chris kicks the classroom door open with explosive news. Patrick, the general knowledge boss of the Pioneer class, their ace player, has been poached. Oak Ridge High School, the same school that expelled Silas, recruited him to secretly boost their academic decathlon team. The whole class erupts, and at the center of this mess is Zachary, the school board director's son, the exact guy Silas punched. Zachary needs Patrick to carry him to an Ivy League guaranteed admission spot, and Oak Ridge wants it bad enough to steal a competitor's best player. Silas, sitting quietly in the back row, says exactly one sentence out loud. The other school poached him at this exact moment because they want Patrick to be their hired gun, a ringer, to get Zachary across the finish line. That single sentence of basic logical deduction drops the entire room into complete silence. In a world where everyone's thinking is this degraded, that's already considered an extraordinary strategic insight. Mr. Mitchell calls Silas into his office not long after. Patrick is gone. Mitchell wants Silas to fill the empty spot on the decathlon team. He tells Silas he doesn't even need to answer questions, just observe, feel the atmosphere, take it in. Silas almost laughs in his feel the atmosphere, right. But then Mitchell adds something that stops him cold. He wants to connect Silas with a top-tier mentor at Harvard and guarantee his admission to Cambridge. Guaranteed Harvard. That changes the math. Silas goes back to class and tells Chris what Mitchell wants. Chris is stunned. Mitchell never puts someone in the field unless he's absolutely confident in them. He starts to reassure Silas that between him and Chloe carrying the load, it'll be fine. Then he turns and notices Chloe has quietly packed up her stuff and moved from her reserved window seat to the desk right next to Silas. He stares at her. She turns bright red, claims the wind by the window is too cold today. Chris looks at her, looks at Silas, looks back at her. It is 85 degrees Fahrenheit outside. After school, Silas is biking home through the neighborhood when he feels a gaze, steady and deliberate, right on his back. He slows down. Sure enough, Chloe is trailing him on a shared bicycle, keeping her distance like she's trying to be invisible. He squeezes the brakes, pulls up alongside her, and asks if she wants to come hang out. She panics, spins her bike completely around, and pedals away at full speed like she's being chased. Silas shakes his head and turns down the alley toward home, completely unaware of what happens next. Because a few minutes after Chloe turns onto an unfamiliar street, a white Ford sedan begins quietly following her. A man with an honest, unremarkable face rolls down his window and offers her a ride. Her gut screams wrong, and she pushes her legs harder, but a bicycle can't outrun a car. The man lunges out, grabs her by the hair, drags her to the ground, and clamps a chloroform-soaked cloth over her face. Her struggles get weaker, and then they stop. That night, Silas is home alone browsing the internet, trying to understand more about this strange world he's landed in. He posts a casual question on a forum asking what geniuses eat to sharpen their minds. The replies are all mockery, until someone mentions a term he's never heard before, the core. He searches it, and what he finds is genuinely staggering. 10,000 years ago, when human civilization was grinding to a standstill, 28 ancient geniuses across different fields came together. Together they built something extraordinary, the world's only super artificial intelligence, locked behind firewalls, so advanced that only a true genius could ever access it. The core holds all of humanity's collected information, every discovery, every secret, every piece of knowledge ever recorded. And no one alive today has the clearance to get inside. Silas shuts the computer down, falls into a deep sleep. At 6 in the morning, a phone call rips him awake. Boston Police Department. His classmate Chloe has been connected to the Chicago serial murder case. He needs to come in immediately. Silas sits in the precinct waiting room, flipping through the case briefing, and the details are horrifying. The killer's name is Thomas, a carpenter. 2 months ago, he murdered his own wife and daughter, and used their skin to upholster a handmade American-style sofa. Now he exclusively targets young high school girls, sending each victim a 3-day countdown text before making his move. Chloe is target number 6. The clock is already running. Beside Silas, Chloe's grandmother is barely standing, gripping his sleeve, mistaking him for a detective, begging him to bring her granddaughter home. The look in that old woman's eyes does something to him. In his original world, a case like this would have been cracked before it ever got this far. But here, the entire Boston Police Department is working off an FBI inspector's guide written by a genius 14,000 years ago. They have no framework for a killer this methodical, this calculating, this far ahead of their cognitive ceiling. They're being played, and they don't even fully understand how badly. Silas makes a decision. He stands up, walks straight into the command center, and locks eyes with Detective Sarah, the lead investigator. He tells her he's from the St. Jude Pioneer class, majoring in criminal investigation. In this world, those two words Pioneer class function like a master key. Without hesitation, Sarah hands him a stack of top-secret case documents and points him to a trash can for the ones he can't stomach. Silas forces down his nausea and pulls the key details out of the horror. He spots something immediately, a piece of surveillance footage that stumped the entire team. The white Ford the killer drove pulled into an alley. Both ends of the alley had cameras. The car never came out the other side. It simply vanished. The whole department is baffled. Silas asks one question: are there any blind spots in the alley? Could a large truck have concealed the car inside a shipping container and driven it out? Sarah freezes. She flips through her FBI handbook, the sacred relic the whole department treats like scripture. That hypothesis isn't anywhere in it. Silas doesn't wait for her to process it. He walks into the task force room, slams the table, and orders the surveillance footage played at 60 times speed. An hour of scrubbing later, a red sedan crawls out of the alley. An officer explains it belongs to a local resident, completely unrelated to the case. Silas points at the screen and picks it apart word by word. Look at the edges of the windows, look at the tires, red spray paint incompletely cleaned. Same make and model as the white Ford. The killer pulled into a blind spot, spray painted the car red, swapped the plates, and drove straight out. The room goes dead silent. Every officer in that conference room is staring at Silas like he just performed a miracle with his bare hands. Sarah takes a breath and gives one order: listen to Silas. Find that red car. 10 minutes later, the real owner of the red car's out of town on a business trip. The car has been locked in a garage the entire time. Silas leans back in his chair and his mind starts running at full speed. He calls for the camera feeds, filters the red car's exit routes, and narrows the search to abandoned villages and industrial zones outside the city. He requests 2 drones with infrared aerial photography, a full SWAT team, and 2 of the department's best snipers. They move out at nightfall. While Silas is coordinating the manhunt on one side of the city, the state academic decathlon is heating up on the other. Chris walks into the competition venue alone, wearing his St. Jude baseball jacket, carrying the whole team on his back. Zachary and Patrick stroll in from the Oak Ridge side, Patrick cool and calculated, Zachary fat-faced and gloating. Zachary makes a crack about Chloe being chopped into pieces. Chris doesn't respond with words. He winds up and puts his fist directly into Zachary's face. Zachary goes down hard, nose bleeding, screaming from the floor. Chris steps on his chest, pulls out his phone and plays a video directly in Zachary's face. $153 million in illegal political contributions. A substitute teacher crippled at 13. 2 classmates bullied to suicide at age 15. All of it documented, all of it on that screen. Zachary's pupils shake, his whole aura collapses. Chris looks down at him with zero emotion and drops one line: bottom feeders should know they're bottom feeders. Then he turns and walks toward the arena without looking back. Zachary stays on the floor, shaking, experiencing what it feels like to have zero power for the very first time in his life. Out in the abandoned industrial zone, Silas is prone on a high vantage point, binoculars trained on a derelict factory building. The whole area is pitch black, and then a faint yellow light flickers in a broken 5th-floor window. Got him. Inside that room, the killer Thomas is running his hands over a freshly built oak chair like it's a living thing, whispering to it. Pure mortise and tenon joints, not a single nail. Dimensions adjusted specifically to fit the skin of his next victim. Chloe is strapped to another chair across the room. 2 days without food or water. A dirty rag stuffed in her mouth. Eyes hollow with despair. Thomas pulls out a wood-carving knife and starts walking toward her. He needs to test the elasticity of her skin first. Just a small cut on the arm. Silas growls into the walkie-talkie, "Sniper, take the shot." The sniper comes back immediately, no good. Thomas is standing directly in front of Chloe. Any bullet that goes through him hits her. Silas slams the binoculars into the dirt. Forced entry is out. The moment a door gets kicked in, Thomas can slit her throat before anyone takes 3 steps. He has to draw Thomas away from Chloe without raising a single red flag. His mind detonates, and in one flash of lightning, he remembers something from the evidence files he reviewed earlier that day. An audio recording, left behind by Thomas's murdered wife and daughter. Silas keys his radio and orders the assault team to check the workgroup chat. He's just sent an audio file. Play it on speakerphone, every phone in the team. Volume to maximum, do it in 10 seconds. And then, cutting through the silence of the abandoned factory yard, a birthday song. "Happy birthday to you." A woman's voice, and a child's voice. drifting up through the broken windows on the night wind. Inside the room, Thomas stops mid-step. His whole body seizes up, cold sweat floods his back in an instant. The singing gets louder. And then a little girl's voice, clear, bright. Absolutely impossible, says, "Happy birthday, Daddy." Surprise. "I bought this carving knife with the allowance I saved up for you." Thomas drops to his knees. The knife clangs on the floor. He starts crawling toward the window, sobbing, completely unraveling, calling out his daughter's name. He has moved entirely away from Chloe. His back is to the room. His chest is fully exposed to the window. Silas roars into the walkie-talkie, "Now, sniper, now." One shot. A 7.62mm NATO round punches through the glass and through Thomas before he can process that anything has changed. A burst of red. Thomas drops like a torn sack, gasping blood onto the factory floor. Silas is already running. He kicks the door in behind the SWAT team and finds Chloe still strapped to the chair. Dehydrated. Barely conscious. Eyes unfocused. An officer cuts the ropes and pulls the cloth from her mouth. Chloe lifts her head, sees Silas standing there in the doorway, and completely breaks down. She throws herself into his arms and just sobs, tears and everything else, right into his chest. Silas has absolutely no idea what to do with his hands. He just stiffly pats her back. "It's okay, it's all over." The medical team rushes in and carries her out on a stretcher. Detective Sarah walks over and puts a hand on Silas's shoulder. She tells him she owes him one, a real one, and to call her if he ever needs it. Silas gets into a police car heading back into the city, more exhausted than he's been in years. The driver flips on the radio. The academic decathlon is apparently neck and neck, but Chris just lost a point by skipping a verification step to save time. Silas snaps awake. That son of a Chris, he had the nerve to brag all season, and this is what it looks like in the clutch. He rolls down the window and tells the officer to change the route. There's somewhere else he needs to be right now. Back at the competition venue, Chris is staring at question 28 with his teeth clenched and the clock running down. Oak Ridge has 3 people sharing the load, Patrick handling the heavy lifting, 2 others assisting. Chris is alone and his processing speed simply can't keep pace. The time buffer he fought so hard to build up has evaporated completely. Question 28 pops onto the screen, a geometry problem. Chris sees the remaining time. He knows this round is finished. He lifts his finger over option D, preparing to just guess and pray, and a hand grabs his wrist from the side. Another hand reaches past him and slaps option B without a moment's hesitation. Correct answer. System confirms it immediately. Chris whips around. Silas is standing behind him, still catching his breath, grinning. "Move over, take a break, the rest is handled." Chris is stunned. He asks about Chloe. Silas tells him she's out, rescued. He grabs the mineral water off the table, drains half the bottle and asks how bad the score situation is. 3 points behind with the time difference almost completely gone. Chris calls it a dead end. Silas raises one eyebrow. "Watch how I bring it back." In Oak Ridge's booth, Patrick looks up from his screen, clocks the correct answer notification, and sees Silas's face. Zachary, sitting beside him with his face still swollen, twists up in fury. "Silas, how is that possible?" Patrick stays calm, sneers that Silas probably got into the pioneer class through the back door. But in the back of his mind he starts calculating, and the math worries him. St. Jude only has 8 minutes left. They're down by 3. Even Einstein couldn't turn this around. He underestimates what he's dealing with. Question 29. A right triangle with legs measuring 6 and 3. Find the square of the hypotenuse. The hint helpfully includes the Pythagorean theorem formula. Silas glances at it, presses C's back into his chair. Done in under 5 seconds. The arena goes silent, then erupts in gasps. The commentator fumbles through his 200-word prepared script and gives up, calling it explosive luck. Chris starts jabbing Silas in the arm, convinced he's burning through his remaining lifespan on blind guesses. Silas tells him to stop being noisy and to wake him up when the next question drops. Question 30. A buying and selling logic problem. Buy for 8. Sell for 9. Buy back for 10. Sell for 11. Total profit. Silas's eyes aren't even fully open before his hand moves to option B. Correct. The arena is boiling. 3 high difficulty questions answered instantly and accurately in a row. In Oak Ridge's booth the temperature drops to freezing. Patrick is sweating, staring at the screen, refusing to believe what he's seeing. He tries to solve the problem himself and presses the wrong answer. Oak Ridge's timer resets to 0. Their final score locks in at 27 points. Silas is just warming up. Question 31. A fill-in-the-blank pursuit problem involving 2 snails at different speeds. Silas types the answer without even touching scratch paper. Correct. Instant kill. And this time there's no excuse of lucky guessing. It's a fill-in-the-blank. You can't fake that. Zachary completely loses it, screaming cheating, slamming the table, demanding the competition staff intervene. Patrick leads his teammates backstage to formally report Silas to the program officials. The competition grinds to a halt. The audience buzzes. Did he memorize the entire question bank in advance? Chris looks at Silas with a complicated expression and asks what they're going to do. Silas doesn't even look up. Let them investigate. He didn't do anything wrong. A few minutes later, Patrick walks into their answering room alone. He stands in front of Silas, stares at him for a moment, and makes an offer. He will personally select every remaining question from the bank, and in exchange, he'll hand over a flash drive containing a decade of money laundering evidence against Zachary's father. He slides the drive across and waits. Silas catches it, weighs it in his palm. He couldn't care less whether the evidence is real or not. Ruining Zachary requires exactly one sentence from him anyway. But he's curious, genuinely curious, what kind of questions this so-called genius thinks will stop him. Deal. The competition restarts. The host announces the remaining questions will be personally selected by Oak Ridge's Patrick to ensure fairness. Patrick's first pick hits the screens, a system of linear equations in 3 variables, built from abstract graphic symbols, with no clear relationships mapped out. Chris goes pale. That's a 10-minute problem at minimum. No way Silas can crack that fast. Silas scans the screen and types 3 numbers. Correct. The gasps from the audience nearly blow the ceiling off the building. Patrick's second question. A classic chickens and pigs combinatorics problem. 35 heads. 94 feet. How many of each? That problem is the stuff of Ivy League number theory lectures. University professors dedicate half an hour to walking through it. Silas does 2 seconds of mental math and types the answer. Correct. The score is tied 27-27. Patrick goes completely feral. He starts pulling from the most obscure corners of every subject archaic literary quotes. Mitochondrial biology, the founding dates of medieval European dynasties. He's throwing the entire breadth of human knowledge at Silas, trying to find one single topic that breaks him. Every answer comes back in under 3 seconds. By question 39, St. Jude hasn't dropped a single point. The score has flipped 33-27, with 3 full minutes still on the clock. Patrick collapses into a chair backstage, hands shaking. He finally understands that what he's been playing against isn't a high school student. It's something he has no framework to describe. With his last shred of fight, he reaches into the question bank and pulls out something that has been gathering dust for hundreds of years. A paragraph of text fills the screen. The unsolved paradox attributed to Newton himself. A boy borrows $50 from his dad and $50 from his mom. He buys shoes for $97. $3. He gives $1 back to each parent and keeps one for himself. He now owes each parent $49. 49 plus 49 is 98, plus the $1 he kept equals 99. Where did the missing dollar go? The audience goes absolutely insane. The university professors in the VIP section shake their heads in unison. Chris slaps his forehead. This is the puzzle of the century. Newton himself left it unsolved. No one can crack this in 3 minutes. Silas looks at the screen and has to physically suppress the urge to burst out laughing. This exact brain teaser was all over social media when he was in middle school. It was a meme, a joke, a thing people shared to trick their friends before the explanation went viral. The question is a logic trap. It secretly swaps concepts. The debt and the money in hand simply cannot be added together. The $98 already includes the $1 the boy kept. The premise is mathematically meaningless. Silas types 1 line into the answer box. This question contains a logical fallacy. Calculating the missing test is stated as mathematically meaningless. The answer is it does not exist. He hits enter. The director backstage stares at the answer and cannot make heads or tails of it, but to end this spectacle, he marks it correct. St. Jude wins the championship. Thunderous applause fills the arena. Chris and Silas walk side by side down the red carpet to the podium. Patrick passes by, without making eye contact, and drops a single word under his brass word. Ford, flash drive is 88 and disappears. A polished-looking guy in a bespoke civilian suit steps forward before Silas can process any of this. He introduces himself as Julian from Wellington Private Academy. Very pleasant, very smooth. Chris immediately steps between them, blocks Julian's line of sight, and tells him Silas just disclosed that he has a terminal illness. His head hurts whenever he talks. He drags Silas forward toward the podium, hissing a warning, "Stay away from that guy, that one is disgusting." Silas has no idea what that means yet. The host shoves a microphone in his face and asks for his secret to pulling off the most shocking comeback in decathlon history. Silas can't exactly say he crossed over from another dimension with a functioning human brain. He clears his throat and deadpans. Read more books. Read more newspapers. Eat fewer burgers. Sleep more. A massive swath of pre-med Ivy League students in the audience immediately pull out notebooks and start furiously writing it down. He stares out at the crowd and thinks this world is truly genuinely hopeless. Back home that night, Silas finally collapses into bed after 2 straight days of running on adrenaline. He's asleep before his head finishes hitting the pillow. What he doesn't know is that on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, Oxford University is currently losing its mind. His single line "this question contains a logical fallacy" triggered something extraordinary in a top mathematics professor named Rhodes. An instant epiphany, an avalanche of proofs, a cascade of implications that alarmed high-level officials across multiple European and American governments. The words Silas typed in 3 seconds to end a high school trivia match just shook the foundations of academic mathematics. The next afternoon, Detective Sarah calls him back to the precinct and hands him a thick envelope of reward money. Then she slides Thomas's personal diary across the table. Silas opens it and finds something almost too pathetic to be true. Thomas had been targeted by a con man, someone calling himself a God's envoy. The con man casually recommended a few stocks that happened to skyrocket, and Thomas believed completely that he had been chosen by divine forces. When the con man told him the gods required a sacrifice, Thomas killed his own wife and daughter without hesitation. When he returned covered in blood to report the deed and claim his reward, the con man laughed in his face, pulled out a phone, and filmed him calling him the dumbest person alive. Silas closes the diary, gives Sarah one more tip: check the bank statements and camera records along the con man's route, and slides the flash drive Patrick gave him onto the table before he leaves. A full decade of ironclad money laundering evidence tied directly to Zachary's father, the Oak Ridge school board director. Once that gets verified, Zachary's entire family is finished. On the way to the hospital to check on Chloe, Silas stops at a fruit stand outside the entrance. The vendor weighs some oranges and quotes him $18. Silas picks them up and immediately notices the weight is off. He peeks around to the underside of the scale and finds a large black magnet stuck to the tray. He smiles, picks up 2 grapefruits, gets quoted $39, hands over a $100 bill, receives 61 back in change, and then pretends to slap his forehead. "Oh wait," he says, "I have exact change. Let me give you 40 to round it out and you give me back that 100. The vendor happily takes the 40, hands back the 100, and yells for him to come back next time. Silas walks away, immediately calls the Department of Consumer Affairs, reports the location and the rigged scale, and pockets an easy $21 plus 2 bags of fruit. Shady merchants should be locked up. He pushes open the hospital room door and finds Chloe sitting in bed, reading a book called 36 Ways to Capture a Man's Heart. She slams it face down the instant she sees him, but the damage is done. After a long awkward pause, she admits she'd been plotting an elaborate multi-stage romantic strategy. Step 1: express deep gratitude. Step 2: treat him to a meal. Step 3: arrange some kind of life-or-death scenario together. Step 4: pick a dark night and cry about her tragic past until he feels compelled to protect her. Silas listens to all of this and rolls his eyes so hard it's almost audible. He cuts her off and tells her to skip all of it. Just tell him the sad backstory directly. The more tragic, the better. She actually listens. Her eyes go red, her voice drops. Her parents didn't die in a car accident. They were silenced. Her parents were investigative journalists. They discovered an African country where the average IQ was dramatically higher than anywhere else on the planet. After going there in person, they uncovered the truth decades ago. Someone had deliberately engineered famines and plagues in that region, specifically targeting and killing off everyone whose intelligence fell below a certain threshold. A targeted, systematic purge of the cognitively average carried out on a massive scale. The only organization capable of accessing and manipulating that kind of global IQ data is the Corps. As soon as the story was ready to publish, the newspaper was shut down. Her parents got into a car accident. The rest of the staff were burned alive. Chloe grabs his wrist, tears running down her face, begs him to help her find the truth. She says only someone with his level of intelligence stands any chance against an organization like that. Silas's heart is pounding. He can feel the pull of it, the weight of it, and he says no. He pries her fingers off his wrist, one by one, and tells her he has people he cares about, and he isn't going to get dragged into a war with a world-class terrorist organization on principle alone. He turns and walks out of the hospital room, without looking back at her expression. He makes it all the way to the first-floor lobby before something stops him cold. A massive line of patients in hospital gowns fills the hallway outside the cardiovascular department, people lying on the floor, wailing, waiting to be seen. A whiteboard on the door reads, "Prescription data error, currently organizing." And then an old woman at the front of the line clutches her chest and collapses. Her young grandson throws himself at the closed door, forehead first, over and over, sobbing, begging the doctors to open up and save her. The floor is smeared with blood from his head. Silas stands there and feels something tighten in his chest. He walks over, holds the boy still, pulls out his Pioneer Class student ID, and hands it to the security guard. "St. Jude Pioneer Class, majoring in data analysis, let me in." The guard stares at those 2 words, Pioneer Class, like he's looking at a living saint. He hands over the keys on the spot. Inside, 2 attending physicians are running in circles. A document malfunction scrambled every patient's name with the wrong medication. They can't prescribe recklessly wrong drugs, kill people, and their only IT administrator is in New York for training. Silas sits down at the computer, one look at the screen. There's a massive Excel spreadsheet open. Every row has a gradient color marker, but the name column got sorted alphabetically while every other column got sorted by color. The whole thing is jumbled because someone accidentally clicked the wrong sorting method. That's it. That's the entire crisis that has hundreds of people waiting in the hall and a child bleeding on the floor. One wrong click. Silas moves the cursor to the filter icon in the header row, clicks it, and changes the name column back to sort by color. The entire spreadsheet snaps back into perfect alignment in an instant. The two doctors grab his hands, trembling, offering him a bonus and a guaranteed medical school admission. He pulls free, looks at the gratitude in the boy's eyes and turns away without a word. These doctors' dedication to saving lives hasn't diminished at all, despite everything this world has lost, and that, somehow, means everything. That evening, a girl named Lauren he met at the decathlon treats him to dinner at Lucille, one of Boston's top-tier French restaurants. They're mid-conversation, when a familiar voice cuts through the noise from behind him. A crack about his mother. Silas is on his feet and throwing a punch before the sentence is even finished. A hand reaches out from the side and blocks it. Henry, in this world, the son of a family that runs the Crown Strategy Academy, one of the most prestigious establishments in the city. Henry adjusts his gold-rimmed glasses and explains calmly that in this world, power isn't about fists, it's about influence. His family has shares in this very restaurant. He nods to the bodyguards flanking him, and the men in black suits crack their knuckles. Before the situation escalates, Julian, the same smooth, bespoke-suited guy from the decathlon venue, pulls and sits down, uninvited. He looks at Henry like he's watching a clown performance and reminds him that Silas just won the state academic championship for the pioneer class yesterday. Henry recalculates fast. He can't touch Silas directly, so his eyes slide over to Lauren. He gives his bodyguards a look. They start moving, and Silas slams the table. Halt. He looks at Henry and offers him a direct challenge, a game of strategy, 5 in a row, go bang. If Silas loses, he drops out of school, gives up his guaranteed university placement, and surrenders the championship title. If Henry loses, he apologizes to Lauren and 2 full counters. Lauren and Julian grab at Silas's clothes, both of them warning him not to do this. Henry's 5 in a row skill is already at the level of a professional one-dan player. Henry smiles. He doesn't believe for one second that a kid whose points are all in general knowledge knows how to play strategy games. The bodyguards clear the table. An expensive kaya-wood board gets set up with black and white stone bowls. Henry wins the coin toss, takes black and places his opening stone right in the center of the board. Tenjin, a declaration of dominance. Silas frowns at it for a second, opens when Jin against him, is naked provocation, and responds, on the fourth row, 16th column. Star point. The room goes completely silent. Julian's face drains of color. Lauren frantically whispers to ask if Silas made a mistake. Julian whispers back that the problem isn't a mistake. He genuinely isn't sure Silas understands how this game is played at all. Henry starts laughing so hard he rocks in his seat. His second stone goes right next to his first. Third stone, same spot. 3 connected black stones running horizontally through the center of the board. Silas stares at those 3 stones and something clicks with a loud clang in the back of his mind. He turns to Julian and asks, in a very careful voice, what game exactly are they playing right now? Julian looks at him like he's lost his mind. 5 in a row, go bang, obviously. Silas goes completely still. In his original world, 5 in a row is something you play on a paper grid during lunch break in middle school. It's casual, it's a time killer. It's what you do while you're waiting for something more interesting to start. But here in this world where the game of Go was never properly developed, 5 in a row evolved into the national prestige sport. The thing people build dynasties around, the thing that determines class and status and influence. The Crown Strategy Academy runs on 5 in a row. The rankings, the professionals, the pavilion challenges, all of it. Silas's half-day psychological battle of wits with Henry has been conducted against a game he played for fun in 7th grade. He takes a slow breath, confirms the rules one more time and gets back to work. He blocks Henry's live 3 at position 10-13. Henry builds an open 4. Silas blocks again. From the outside it looks like Silas is suffocating under pressure, scrambling just to stay afloat. But Julian's expression after watching for a while shifts from worried to deeply confused. Something is off. Henry has a massive positional advantage, yet every single opening Silas leaves exposed turns out to be a dead end. Henry starts slowing down. He can feel it, something is wrong with this board, but he can't identify where or how. Silas looks at him and points to the one remaining position where Henry can form a live 3. Play here, he says. That's the only option you have left. Henry stares at the board. It's true. His face goes livid. He demands to know how Silas did this. Silas yawns. If you're scared, just admit it. Or you can walk out of here on your knees. I'm fine either way. Henry's eyes go red. He plays on. Silas begins mobilizing his outer white stones and the reversal is slow, deliberate, and total. Live 2's building into live 3's, every step forward pressing Henry tighter into a corner. Lauren grabs Sophie's arm. The atmosphere in the room has flipped completely. The final stone lands with a crisp crack of stone against wood. Henry, you've lost. Henry stares at the board. He tries to argue it's just a live 3, he can block it. Julian cuts him off and tells him to look at the diagonal line, created by the stone he just placed himself. Henry goes rigid. That stone's combined with 2 others already on the board, forms another live 3 on the diagonal. A double kill. And the stone that made it all possible. The star point opening from move 1, the move everyone laughed at, placed there at the very beginning. Henry's jaw clenches. He mutters, could it be that from the very start you? Silas cuts him off with a small smile. He says he didn't plan that far, he was just blocking. It happened to line up that way. He says it's simply more satisfying to end it here. Henry reaches across the table, snatches the signed agreement and tears it to shreds in front of everyone. He hands the pieces to a bodyguard. Burn it. Silas's face goes cold, smiles and says he doesn't know anything about any bet, and invites anyone who thinks they witnessed something to come forward if they dare cross the Sterling family. He leans in close to Silas and drops one final line, low and deliberate, we have plenty of time. Julian sighs after Henry leaves. The Sterling family's influence through the Crown Strategy Club is too embedded to fight directly. But Silas's strength today has been put on display. Henry won't move against him in the short term. That's the best outcome available. Lauren puffs her cheeks in frustration. Silas thinks for a moment, then looks up at Julian and asks one question. Is there a way to make a top-tier club collapse entirely? Julian pauses. Yes, if someone successfully kicks the pavilion, defeats every top player in the club in a formal challenge. According to the rules of the World 5 in a row association, a club with no remaining unbeaten players has no right to stay open. And in Boston only one strategy club can exist at a time. Silas nods. Julian immediately reads the look on his face and starts warning him not to do it. A failed challenge means covering the club's expenses for 10 years and a lifetime ban from competition. The Crown Club has multiple 7-dan players. The stakes are enormous. Silas just shakes his head. There's nothing to be afraid of. Lauren looks at him very seriously. Are you confident? Yes. Then I'm coming with you. That night, lying in bed with the ceiling above him, Silas lets himself think about what this world actually is. The surface looks familiar: cities, schools, restaurants, social media. But underneath it, this place is far more dangerous than anything he grew up with. Janitors beaten in the street without consequence. Blue-collar workers barred from entering restaurants. Underground stations trading in human blood. Class division so rigid it functions like a caste system built entirely on IQ levels and inherited capital. Resources locked in the hands of a tiny upper tier, leaving everyone below with effectively no way up. Henry and Zachary aren't just rich kid bullies here, their behavior is atrocious in ways that would be criminal almost anywhere else. And then there's the core, an organization capable of engineering a cross-national genocide to filter the global population by intelligence. He stares at the family portrait on his wall, a simply dressed woman gazing at him gently from the frame. Good night, Mom. Tuesday morning, the Crown Strategy Club. The entrance is exactly what you'd expect from old money marble pillars, Roman stone columns, a gold name etched into a carved plaque. Lauren is already waiting outside. White hoodie, pleated skirt, standing about 50 meters back from the entrance. She waves. He gives her a look. She says if he'd told her not to come, she would have just followed him secretly. He teases her for standing so far away from the door. She insists she's only a little scared. Silas pulls out a folding fan, snaps it open with a single sharp crack, and says very soon they'll be the ones who should be afraid. He pulls out a graffiti spray can and starts writing on the expensive marble pillar. Overrated, useless, total trap. A uniformed student named Ben bursts out of the club before he can finish. He stares at the red letters on the stone, then spins around and shouts back into the lobby, someone is kicking the pavilion. The resident 7-dan player Oliver hears the report and smiles dismissively. He hasn't seen a pavilion challenge in years. He sends out a near-professional student to handle it as practice. Less than 5 minutes later, Ben runs back inside, pale as paper. Their guy lost. Oliver stands up. He walks into the advanced game room and finds Silas lounging on a leather sofa, folding fan spinning lazily in his hand. Oliver introduces himself, gives Silas one clean chance to apologize, wipe the paint, and walk away. Silas reminds him of the challenge rules. The club gets to put up 10 players. He just has to beat all 10. This first game counts as game 1. Oliver sits down. Coin toss. Silas plays first. Tension, centerboard, statement of control. A dozen foos fly past. Julian and Lauren's best friend Sophie have arrived by the time the board has 30 stones on it. Julian's face goes tense when he sees Oliver sitting across from Silas, a 7-dan master. This is serious. But something is off about how the board looks. Oliver has been dictating the attack the entire time. Silas has done nothing but defend. Yet Oliver only has 1 live 2 remaining. Everything else has been sealed. Meanwhile, Silas has constructed an entire framework of live 2s and open 3s across the board and is making 0 moves to use any of them. Oliver's forehead is damp. He places a stone and then freezes mid-thought. The last time he felt this sensation, he was a young player sitting across from the global number 1, the chess saint Victor. He lifts his eyes to look at the teenager across from him. He takes back what he said earlier. This person is very strong. Silas smiles and shakes his head. He places a stone on the far side of the board, completely outside the main battleground, seemingly irrelevant to everything. Oliver freezes. At an incredibly precise angle, that stone links 2 blocked, dead-end connected 2s that haven't moved in 10 turns. 4 useless stones become 5. Game over. You set this up 10 moves ago, Oliver says. You could have ended this long before now. Silas looks at him. Oliver surrenders. The 8-dan player who comes next lasts 10 minutes. The club's other resident players follow, and one by one they all fall. The club's owner, Mr. Sterling, is racing back from out of town on a private jet. He makes Nads one desperate phone call and brings in Honorary Master Arthur, a legend coaxed out of retirement. And then, from deep within the club, an old but powerful voice echoes through the halls. I heard someone is kicking the pavilion. Julian's face goes completely white. Chess Saint Victor, the global number 1, walks into the room, sizes Silas up, and announces he'll be playing today as a registered club member. Sterling almost drops to his knees with gratitude. Lauren tries to object. Victor isn't officially a club member. It violates the rules. Silas snaps his fan shut and cuts her off. Since they're bringing in outside help, he wants better compensation. He turns to Sterling and lays out his terms: half the Sterling family's assets. Wall Street stocks. Hedge funds. Real estate. The club itself. All of it, half. And Henry pays a price. Sterling doesn't hesitate for even 1 second. He simply doesn't believe Silas can win against the global number 1. Deal. Coin toss. Silas takes black and plays first tangent. Victor defends diagonally. And Silas doesn't play around this time. He opens with the Puyue, opening the universally recognized guaranteed win formation for black that he knew from his original world. Victor is genuinely strong, far beyond anyone Silas has faced in this world. But he's looking at Silas's moves the way a high schooler looks at a professor solving differential equations, able to follow the steps, but not understanding the logic that produced them. 21st move, Silas builds a live 3. Victor blocks, jump 4, Victor cuts it, open 4, Victor blocks again. Victor believes he's holding the line. He isn't. Every block is paving the road Silas already drew. 37th move. Instant kill. Victor sits at the board without moving for a very long time. Master Arthur asks him what percentage of his strength he used. Victor answers 100%, and he lost with complete conviction. The entire room erupts. A 17-year-old just defeated the chess saint of the world. Sophie and Lauren grab each other and jump up and down screaming. Sterling stands in the corner looking like someone just told him his father died. Then his expression flips entirely, years of being a capitalist fox kicking in, and he walks over with his biggest smile. He calls Silas boss. He promises the asset transfers will be completed within days. Last year's profits transferred full, and all of this year's earnings flowing to Silas going forward. Silas understands exactly what he's doing, trying to tie him to the family as an asset worth more than any dollar amount. Fine, he needs the backing. He tells Sterling to arrange everything, and reminds him about Henry. Sterling nods once. Henry is dragged in by bodyguards, pale and shaking, already knowing something has gone very wrong. When he sees Silas sitting in the chair, Henry loses whatever composure he had left. He lunges forward screaming, "Why didn't you lose? Why couldn't you just stay at the bottom where you belong?" And gets pinned to the floor by the bodyguards before his hands get anywhere near Silas. Silas crouches down in front of him and looks at his twisted face for a moment. He shakes his head, says one word, ugly, and stands up and walks out. Behind him, Sterling's voice carries clearly, "Put Henry on a plane. Send him to the Alaskan wilderness tomorrow." Henry thinks it's an overseas trip, but that place is a genuine no man's land, a death zone, a one-way door. That night, Sus gets a call from his middle school best friend Marcus, come out for a beer. Things are bad. At a corner bar, Marcus tells him his community college admission spot was stolen, pulled by capitalists, and handed to some brain-dead rich kid who didn't qualify. Silas stops almost locking when he sees how serious Marcus looks. In this world, even a community college seat is worth pulling strings over. Most people get filtered out before they ever reach high school. Getting into any college at all means you're 1 in 100. Silas tells him, "I'll figure something out." 2 days later, the internet explodes with a headline: Chess Saint Victor played Google's Super AI AlphaGo in a best-of-3 match and lost all 3 games. The internet floods with despair. 5 is dead. Humanity can't beat a machine. But at the press conference, Victor says only one thing: I am not the strongest. I will invite the strongest player I have ever seen to fight for humanity again. The entire internet starts furiously speculating about who the mysterious player could be. Master Arthur calls Silas. He wants him to step up and face the AI. Silas hesitates. Computational power has no blind spots. Going there just to lose is a waste of his time. Arthur tells him Victor tried one of Silas's strategies in the final game, and the AI showed a flaw, a real one. Silas still wavers. Arthur goes quiet for a long moment, then says something that lands differently. The AI has no soul. If it wins, every future player will just copy its patterns. Playing without a soul, what is that, if not already being dead? Silas opens his mouth to decline. Arthur adds, and the prize for winning is 200 million euros. Silas closes his mouth. For the dignity of humanity, for the international chess world, he is clearly duty-bound. 2 days later he walks through the entrance of the Global Minds Sports Federation, pass in hand. Squeezing through, a crowd of reporters still arguing over who the mystery challenger even is. In the match room, the Google AI team stares at him, a teenager in a hoodie, and then looks at Victor with a face full of disbelief. This is your hope for humanity? The live broadcast goes out. The internet explodes again. Game Silas takes black, plays Tenjin, and opens with the polar star formation. By move 20 he has cut off 70% of the AI's available lines. The AI's win rate curve begins dropping on the live display. 27th move 4-3 fork. Game 1's Silas. Victor crushes the mineral water bottle in his hand from pure excitement, soaking Master Arthur beside him. The AI team director requests a break, citing overheating server cooling equipment. Silas knows they're using the time to analyze every move he made. It doesn't matter. In this world, playing black first with any of his openings is a guaranteed win. Game 2 coin toss. Silas draws white. The situation shifts immediately. White has no universally guaranteed win opening. Playing second is completely passive. The AI opens with Tenjin and copies the polar star formation directly. Earns fast. Sis fights hard for dozens of moves and ultimately loses. Tie 1-1. Game 3 decides everything. Coin toss white again. A cloud of quiet despair settles over the audience. Silas exhales. At least he won one game. At least humanity got to see it was possible. He plays his opening move casually, almost resigned, and then his fingers pause mid-reach. A thought crystallizes so fast it almost hurts. The AI's entire computational structure is built on the logic of shapes. It identifies stones that actively participate in offense or defense, and it responds to them. What if he plays a stone that does neither? A completely superfluous move. A stone that isn't attacking, isn't blocking, has no function in any conventional reading of the board. The AI's database contains no logic algorithm for processing a genuinely useless move, because no intelligent player has ever deliberately played one. The rules say nothing against it. The corners of Silas's mouth curl upward. He places a white stone diagonally tangent, forming a strange knight's move shape, with another white stone already on the board. Victor furrows his brows. The audience murmurs. The commentators have no language for what they're watching. The AI pauses for several seconds before continuing its own offensive line, treating the stone as noise and moving on. Silas plays another one, then another, ignoring the AI's live threes entirely, building longer and stranger knits move chains across the board. Everyone assumes he's surrendering. It isn't until move 48 that Victor's eyes go completely wide. He sees it. The gaps between every white stone are locked within an absolute distance of 4 grid squares. Any black stone landing anywhere within the coverage of that white formation can connect at most 4 in a row, never 5. The entire board has been geometrically enclosed by a matrix Silas has been quietly constructing for 50 moves. The AI never noticed, because it was never looking for a pattern that had no offensive function. It was walking in circles inside a maze it couldn't see the walls of. 60th moves connects 2 live threes. Victory. The arena doesn't just applaud, it detonates. A 17-year-old just overturned 3 million years of accumulated human chess wisdom with a strategy no one in this world had ever imagined was possible. Silas collects his award, takes his photos, tucks a 200 million euro check under his arm, and walks out of the building. A heavy Ford truck comes at him like a missile before he reaches the sidewalk. Pure instinct throws him backward. His left arm takes the scrape, his skull hits concrete. Master Arthur, standing nearby, doesn't make it out of the way in time. Several reporters freeze in place. Men in black suits converge on Silas instantly, shield him from the scene and load him into an armored vehicle. He wakes up in an underground air raid shelter with a man in a tactical vest standing at his bedside. Agent Carter, United Nations Genius Council, the UNG, dedicated to protecting confirmed true geniuses. Silas asks why a chess match warrants this kind of response. Carter shows him a top-secret file. His answer to the Newton paradox has been formally verified by Princeton University's academic committee. He is, as of this moment, the only confirmed true genius among 8 billion people on Earth. The file reads: Silas is confirmed dead. His identity has already been officially announced as deceased. The UNG's investigation traces the attack back to Julian, the smooth-talking private academy student, who kept appearing at exactly the right moments. Always helpful, always too clean. Julian is not in his apartment when the arrest order goes out. Silas makes a phone call. "Julian, let's chat." Julian's voice comes back stiff and falsely surprised. Silas tells him to stop pretending modern communication signals can be tracked in real time by military satellites. He hangs up. 3 Apache helicopters have already surrounded Julian's location. Silas stands on the rooftop as the rotors tear the air apart around him, the full weight of a nation's military infrastructure standing at his back. Julian walks out with his hands raised, bespoke suit soaked in blood. He dealt with an accomplice who might have talked too much. They sit across from each other on the rooftop like old friends. Julian slides a can of soda across. Silas doesn't take it. Julian says there's a bug in this world and watches Silas's face for the recognition. He finds it. He smiles. He explains that the annotation was left in the margins of a tech history book by Dr. Elias Vance, the original creator of the core. In the eyes of a true genius, the world looks different. Julian knows this. He was one of the few who could almost see it. Almost. He stands, walks to the edge of the rooftop, and says he can't send his colleague off first and then be too afraid to follow. Silas tells him, "When you get to hell, apologize to the people you killed." Julian leans backward and disappears over the edge of the roof like a kite with a snapped string. A dull impact echoes from the street below. Carter's voice comes through the earpiece. "As long as Silas is alive, the domain will go completely dormant." Carter recommends a full identity change, continuing as Silas will put everyone around him in danger. Silas agrees without much argument. A few days later, Boston's most prestigious funeral parlor is holding a memorial service for one Silas High School student. Pioneer class. Chess god. Crime-solving prodigy. Silas stands in the corner wearing sunglasses and a black mask, looking at his own portrait in the center of the hall cropped from his St. Jude's student ID. Marcus gets up to the podium to deliver the friends and family speech and tells 3 of the most embarrassing things Silas has ever heard about himself. In front of a room full of governors, Federation chairmen, and AI team directors, Lauren reads the encrypted text Silas sends and walks out with Sophie, suppressing a smile. Marcus grins and pockets his notebook. 3 months later, a young man named Evan boards an Amtrak train toward Cambridge. New name, clean record, black-rimmed glasses, and a €200 million foundation beneath his feet, ready to see what this broken world needs fixing next.